Imagine boarding a flight, excited for a long-awaited trip, only to be met with cold stares and whispers from passengers who don't even know you. That's exactly what happened to 16-year-old Marcus, a smart and confident black teenager on his way to a prestigious event. The tension in the air was undeniable as a few passengers questioned his seat in first class. From the condescending looks to the rude remarks, it was clear they assumed he didn't belong. Marcus stayed calm, but the situation escalated when a flight attendant joined in, doubting his ticket. Just as the pressure seemed unbearable, a surprising twist left everyone speechless. It turns out, Marcus wasn't just any teenager. He had a story that would make the entire airline rethink their actions. Stay tuned to find out what happened next and how Marcus turned this moment into something unforgettable. Marcus had always been taught to carry himself with grace, no matter the situation. His parents, proud of his accomplishments, had instilled in him the importance of humility and strength. This trip was a milestone. He had been invited to speak at a youth leadership conference, representing his school and community. Dressed sharply and carrying only a small backpack, Marcus quietly took his seat, excited yet nervous about his speech the next day. But from the moment he entered the cabin, he could feel the weight of judgment. Passengers exchanged glances, whispering just loud enough for him to hear snippets like, "Must be a mistake," and "How could he afford this?" The flight attendant, who was supposed to ensure a pleasant journey, instead questioned his boarding pass, her tone laced with suspicion. Marcus stayed calm, but inside he wondered. Why, as the flight attendant hovered over him, Marcus could feel every eye in the cabin locked on him. She double-checked his ticket, her skeptical glance making it clear she didn't believe he belonged in first class. "Are you sure this is your seat?" she asked, her voice carrying a sharp edge. Marcus calmly nodded, handing her the ticket without a word, but inside, his frustration grew. Why was he always forced to prove himself? Meanwhile, a few rows back, an older couple whispered loudly enough for others to hear. "Probably snuck up here," one of them muttered. Another passenger, clearly uncomfortable, shifted uneasily in their seat but stayed silent. It was as though everyone had made up their minds about Marcus without knowing a single thing about him. Then, just as Marcus was beginning to wonder if he'd have to leave the seat he rightfully paid for, an announcement from the flight crew turned the mood upside down. Was he always judged first by his appearance? He never imagined what would happen next. As the flight attendant stepped away with Marcus's ticket in hand, the cabin buzzed with quiet murmurs. Marcus kept his eyes forward, doing his best to block out the negativity around him. He clutched the armrest tightly, feeling the weight of judgment pressing down on him. Minutes felt like hours as he waited for her to return, wondering what more he would have to endure. Then, a voice crackled through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to acknowledge a very special passenger on board today." Heads turned, curiosity sparking across the cabin. Marcus's heart raced, unsure of what was happening. He glanced around, sensing that this was about him but not understanding why. The flight attendant returned, her demeanor completely changed. Her previously skeptical expression was replaced with a look of shock, and maybe even embarrassment. She handed Marcus back his ticket with a nervous smile, but the entire cabin was noise. Marcus tried to process a sudden shift in the flight attendant's attitude. The voice on the intercom continued. "We're honored to have Marcus Hayes with us today, a keynote speaker at the National Youth Leadership Conference." The murmurs in the cabin grew louder, a mix of surprise and realization rippling through the passengers. Marcus glanced around, catching the stunned expressions of those who had doubted him moments ago. But just as the tension seemed to ease, another passenger abruptly stood up. A man in a business suit, sitting a few rows ahead, spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "That doesn't explain why he's in first class. Plenty of people get invited to events, but it doesn't mean they've earned this." His words hung heavy in the air, reigniting the discomfort. Marcus felt the eyes on him again, some apologetic, others still full of doubt. The flight attendant froze, unsure how to respond, while Marcus's mind raced. He had spent years proving himself, but now, in this moment, he realized this wasn't just about him. It was about challenging a mindset. The question was, how one edge, waiting to hear the full story. Before Marcus could respond, the captain of the flight appeared in the cabin. He walked directly to Marcus, a warm smile on his face. "Mr. Hayes," he said, extending a hand, "it's an honor to have you on board. I've read about your incredible achievements. Your work is inspiring." The room fell silent. The same passengers who had doubted Marcus now watched in disbelief as the captain treated him with respect and admiration. The man in the business suit, still standing, looked visibly uncomfortable. "Wait," he stammered, "who is this kid?" The captain turned to address the entire cabin. "Marcus is not just attending the National Youth Leadership Conference. He's the youngest recipient of the Innovation Award for his project helping underprivileged communities. He's changing lives." A wave of awkward apologies and embarrassed glances swept through the cabin. Marcus nodded graciously, but as he settled back into his seat, the captain leaned in and whispered, "Don't let them define you. Keep being great." And just as Marcus thought the moment had passed, the flight attendant returned with an upgrade, a seat in the cockpit for landing, a rare privilege reserved for someone truly extraordinary. As the plane descended, Marcus sat in the cockpit, gazing out at the city below. The adrenaline from the earlier tension had faded, replaced with a sense of quiet triumph. The crew treated him like a VIP, and the passengers who had once doubted him now saw him for who he truly was. It was a moment he'd never forget. When the plane touched down, the captain pulled Marcus aside. "I hope this experience shows you something," he said. "Don't ever let people's narrow views hold you back. You've got a future that's as limitless as the sky." Walking off the plane, Marcus felt lighter, as if the weight of judgment had been lifted. The world might try to define him, but he knew now that his path was his own. He'd keep proving himself, not to others, but to the version of himself he was destined to become. The best was yet to come.